this session, as you guys know, is about pricing strategy. And a little bit about me, not a lot. I am a senior director with Simon Kutcher and Partners, and that is a leading global firm when it comes to pricing and revenue management. I'm going to skip the rest, but you can go through it later if you have access to the presentation afterwards. I'm not sure. So we have a long agenda for today, and before I go right into the details of it, I think it would be helpful to just start with some questions to make it more relevant for everyone, because I assume this is a very diverse group and set of audience. So I just wanted to understand from this group, and I'm going to open the room just in the beginning to see some of the key pricing challenges that you either experience in your business, or if you're a student and thinking about starting a business, what do you think those challenges could be? Anyone?
Feel free to unmute yourself.
Hi there, it's Brendan here. The business that I'm looking to start is a recreation facility for different sports. So it's not, there's not really, I'll say, a whole lot of like product like that you would touch, but more so services that people will be using. And yeah, I'm just at the very beginning stages, and I don't even have any costs at this point. I know my project, since I've kind of started working on, I've broken it up into different kind of phases. The first phase being just renting space from other existing facilities and hosting participants or clients, that sort of thing, to participate in the different sports. So that's kind of my first step, and then I guess that's probably where I'll leave it, because beyond that, I don't have any real costing numbers at this time.
Okay, that's very interesting. So it's a costing challenge, basically. You think that because you don't know your cost, it's difficult to price your products, kind of a thing?
Well, I know that some of the costs I have, like, if I rent a municipal property or building, right, or a private facility like a school gymnasium or a private hockey rink, that the costs, like I can go get the costs, and I've seen those costs already. But it's like long-term, what I was kind of more alluding to is the cost of like the acquisition cost of property, building a building or a facility that would house all this is kind of my long-term, dream. But in the short term, probably 12 to 36 months, I won't have that. So it'd be a long project to get there, but in the meantime, I wanted to start by offering the services, and basically I'll call myself a broker type of thing, or a project manager. That is, I'll find a facility, and then I'll pitch, I'll market the service or the program I'm offering out at that facility at that time, and then hopefully have enough interest to make a profit type of thing. So I can put that revenue towards the long-term goals.
Interesting. Anybody else in the room wants to share what are their pricing challenges? Brandon, since you already volunteered, so when you're launching this business, how do you look at it? So you're talking to me about what are the recreational services that you're going to be selling, but how do you see it as what your customers are going to be buying? Have you thought about that?
Yeah, so my customers won't really be buying like an actual product, or it's a service that I'll deliver. And my customer base is kind of all over the place, because I can target moms and dads with children that have them participate in sports, or a special sports clinic type of thing. At the same time, I still play hockey, right? And there's other people out there that I play in a league, and it's just a guy who organizes 20 or 22 guys to play hockey every Sunday night. But at the same time, you know, there's people probably in their early 20s, like, you know, in university or college, maybe you're done high school, maybe finished university or college, that still want to play maybe in a competitive league. And I think my initial short-term objective or goal is to offer kind of clinics or just recreational leagues, like not even so much a league, just like I went out for wings the other night with a bunch of guys. The guys, let's go play basketball, right? And you know, I'll rent the space. You know, it's not a lot of money to rent the space, and I'll charge everyone accordingly, type of thing. Like at the table I was at, there was 8 guys. You know, we're already in. They all said, yeah, let's do it, right? So I need kind of 12 more people to kind of have 20 players, so that we can just go have fun, and you know, everyone can catch their breath every few minutes, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I get it. So, I mean, the things that you're saying, they're really right. I'm trying to point to a direction where we talk about, you know, what you are providing to customers, what's the service, versus what I'm gaining a sense from you that what they're buying or getting from you is like a convenience, a community, a place where they can go to, right?
Right. Yeah. Yes, that's right.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons I brought this up was because to let you know what the key takeaway from the session would be. And that would be to look at what the customer is buying and how they value it. And that is what will lead to your pricing strategy. I was speaking to a professional the other day, and it's a lawyer, interesting business. They draw wills for different people, for individuals and consumers. And when I was talking to them, I realized that people would rather go pay $1,500 to write a will with an experienced lawyer rather than pay $500 for writing a will with somebody who is not so experienced. Why? Because what they're buying is not really the service of somebody drawing a legal contract, but it's actually peace of mind that they're buying. And when something like that is associated with your business, it gives you an opportunity to charge for a premium, make it more profitable, also give more value to your customers. So just keep that in mind as we are going through the sessions, that the key takeaway would be determining what the customer really is buying for you, how they value it, and how can you determine what that value is, how can you monetize that.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so let's start with some of the typical questions that we get when we talk about pricing strategy. And these are common for any business. Also, during the meeting, anytime, please feel free to stop me if something is new for you, or you would like to ask a question about your particular case or your business. So every business at one point or another is going to face the issue of the right price for the product. How do they know if the product is overpriced? How do they know if they are leaving money on the table? And what is the profit potential of a product? Could they make more? Could they make less? And the answer to all these questions is actually your pricing strategy. And what are pricing strategy? Actually, it's not rocket science. So pricing strategies essentially are the models, guidelines, and or methods that a business can use to price their services correctly. And it's not done in silo. It's very important. A pricing strategy is based on your business's strategic and financial goals, marketing framework, and operational needs. And essentially, it's a 4-step process that starts with discussion of your overall marketing and financial strategy. For example, what are the positioning goals of your business? What type of funding are you getting? Why is it important? Because if, let's say, a business is running on a credit line and it's a software business, then they will not be able to offer freemium services because you're paying credit. But if you have seed funding, you will be able to apply certain pricing strategies like freemium offers or a pilot products and stuff like that. The next step in the process is to analyze. And what it means is that you always need to look at competitor benchmarks in the market, if there are any available. You need to look at customer research, historical data, always do your homework, do the financial analysis and feasibility in the short run and in the long run. Then you combine these and then you discuss with partners and clients. In some cases, if it's like a very new business, you could just be talking to your super users for early stage startups and also any other relevant stakeholders. The final step then is to strategize. And here what you do is that you basically develop pricing guidelines, and also you look at possible future scenario if there is a product or market uncertainty. This is a short exercise, but I'm going to skip this one in the interest of time here, and this mostly applies to established businesses anyways. Before I dive more into the pricing strategy itself, especially because this is a session for new founders, I would like to talk a little bit more about the right business model, which means getting the pricing right before you even start anything else. And a business model primarily is how a business makes money. It answers questions like who is the customer, what does the customer really value, and what is the underlying economic logic that explains how a business can deliver value to customers at an appropriate cost. Like in the example I was talking to Brandon earlier about, the lawyer, when he or she or they are drawing a will for their customer, they are giving peace of mind to their customers, and customers are willing to pay in economic terms for that peace of mind. So that's essentially the business model when it comes to that specific business. Also, a business model would be a key element for your short-term and long-term pricing strategy for any business, and your business model can be dynamic. It can change in the short term. You may start with one set of customers, but over time, you may discover that there are secondary segments that you can target, and then you can expand your business model. But essentially, in very simple words, it's just a method for you to extract value for your company. Okay, why is this not moving? Yeah. When we talk about business models, there are three very important dimensions that we need to look at. And first of all is, who do you charge for? Who is your primary customer and who is your secondary customer? And it's important to find out if there are any secondary customers in the short run or in the long run, because that enhances your monetization opportunity. You need to look at the dimension of to pay, meaning that there could be more than one participant who can contribute to monetization. And we are all well aware of how social media platforms work in the market. They charge the users for premium services, but they also charge the advertisers. Or, they might offer services for free for one set of users, but not for the other. An example would be a dating site, Bumble. What do people do? How should they decide whether they only want men to pay, or should women also pay, or should one of them be free? So these decisions are very important. Then the next question is what to charge for. Is it a one-time product or is it a recurring service? For example, if you're paying for a book, it's just a one-time transaction. But if it's like Netflix, it's recurring, it's every month. Or it could also be a one-time lump sum like the country club membership, fee or a rental fee for the actual usage of the object, like the book rentals. And then the third one would be the way to charge. And this is actually the high point of pricing innovation with so many options out there in the market today. You could charge an absolute sum, or you could charge a percentage of value provided, or you could have fixed and variable components like Amazon does. If anybody has ever opened a shop on Amazon, you know that there are warehouse costs, but then there are also slow inventory turnover penalty. Or another model would be something like an a la carte offering. And this is similar to what the budget airlines do today, where you purchase something basic, but then you can have add-ons. And then freemium is yet another popular model in digital space. And what freemium does is that you get a product, usually it's a software service, not a tangible product, for free for a certain month. And once you're hooked on, you're supposed to pay for it as you go on. And this is my favorite, which is the radical business model of WhatsApp. So WhatsApp was bought by Facebook for $22 billion when it had about 600 million users and $20 million in revenue, just $20 million. So the valuation was about 1,000 times the revenue. And this is actually the value potential of the right business model, where they realize that, even a business model with zero revenue, which usually is not likely to be very profitable, but they created so much value for the users that it became huge. And that's the power of a good business model. Now here, I would usually stop for a quick exercise. Yes, Sarah?
Thank you. Could you just talk a little bit more about WhatsApp? Because I think that, at least for me in my situation, that WhatsApp, that pricing model feels very near and dear to me, where there's a lot of value created. How do they go about pricing, or like how does that alternative, because it sounds like, or it seems like an alternative pricing or a compound pricing thing has to develop in that situation in order for it to exist.
Yeah. So WhatsApp has never been really profitable, but the game that they played was that they got 600 million users and they were giving them free messaging service and a global messaging service. So it's convenience that they are giving to their customers. It's affordability that they're giving to their customers. And WhatsApp probably had a long-term strategy where they just wanted to become so valuable for a big giant like Facebook that they would come and take them over because they're close to consumers. And that's what a giant like Facebook would want. So when Facebook acquired them, for Facebook as a big company, they could afford to have a loss leader. But WhatsApp maybe would not have been able to continue had it been on its own today, to be honest.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So here I would usually pause for a short exercise, and here we want to look at LinkedIn's model. And the reason why I choose LinkedIn is because most of us are familiar with it, and it has a very interesting business model as well. And what I would like us to think about is, who is LinkedIn monetizing? What is it that LinkedIn is really selling? Or where is the value creation? And how is LinkedIn charging its customers? And I would like maybe everybody to just take a minute, think about these questions, and then we can talk about it. When you're thinking about it, it would be useful to look at it, to think about the 3 dimensions that I talked about it as well. And then see who, in your opinion, you think LinkedIn is monetizing. Where are they getting most of the revenue from? I'll pause for 1 minute here. Okay, any volunteers? Anybody wants to make a guess at who LinkedIn is monetizing, where most of their revenue is coming from, who is it that they're targeting mostly?
Brendan here again. I think that who they're monetizing is people that are job searching or like headhunters, like hiring agencies.
Mhm. Yeah, that's
they're-
definitely two of them.
Yeah, and they're selling basically. I think what they're selling rather is basically they act almost as if they're the headhunter. They can review your resume, your profile on LinkedIn to make it so that the headhunters and the companies that you want to work for are attracted to your profile, or if they search you on LinkedIn, if you apply for a job, that they bring that, they create that value, or they hit all the buzzwords that all those HR people are looking for.
Yep, absolutely. You covered two of their main target segments, actually. Anybody else wants to take a guess?
In the chat, Hargan said through advertisements. Sarah said monetizing to the recruiters. They're getting monetized. Yeah.
They also have the sales navigator, I think that's what it's called.
Mhm.
It's for people in sales that can find leads and other people in their industries.
Yeah, I think that's where they're growing now.
Yeah, for sure, because there's a charge to use it and be able to message people directly. I believe it's with the monthly charge.
Yes, that's still, I mean, consumer, because anybody who has a premium account actually can send a direct message, but you don't get help with targeting like you do when it comes to sales agencies. But yeah, this is really good.
And Warda from in the chat, she said they get monetized by accessing to who you can message, LinkedIn courses, job seekers.
Yep, absolutely. All of these and more. So LinkedIn has a three-way pay. It's advertisers, recruiters, individuals. I would lump sales agencies with advertisers, even though it's a little bit different because they are helping them find customers. And what is LinkedIn selling and where is the value creation? It's interesting that previously it used to be just networking, but now it's also data reselling to companies. So they're also a data company, in addition to what we earlier believed they were selling, like presence, networking and employment, opportunities for individuals, market reach to advertisers, all of that. And how is LinkedIn charging its customers is that they have different monetization model for each pair, which is interesting. So anybody or any of you who are starting a new business where you may have a primary and secondary users, you need to think very differently for the monetizations for each pair. So for example, LinkedIn has premium subscriptions and freemium model for individuals, but it's not the same for advertisers, recruiters, and individuals. So it's very important, one, to explore your business model and understand who your primary, secondary customers are, and then how you develop business model, how you charge each of them. So moving on, now that we understand business model, we can discuss how to monetize each set of customers based on the value that we are creating for them. And here we talk about the pricing strategy evolution. Traditionally, we used to price based on cost here, cost-based. What is my cost? I want to make 30% of top, and that is my price. The problem with this is, especially for the new businesses, that initially your cost is very high and it's very complex. So you might overcharge your customer, or you may not be able to find out what the cost is. Your cost will go down as you scale up. If you price based on that today, you may be undermining your products or services. Then the other one is customer-based pricing. Again, over here, and this one is then where you ask the sales agents or the end users, and they always go for lower price and discounts and results in undervalued products. And then there's competitor-based price, where you are trying to match the competitor's pricing. And that again can result in under or overvalued price, because it's important to see how your product is different from competitors. If it's better, you need to charge more. If it's not, you need to undercut your competitors. So again, none of these are the best benchmark, especially not cost. Even though I have seen that a lot of startups would, or new founders, first of all, would go toward the cost-based method. But what we see in the pricing industry is the best way to do is to analyze the market, your product, and go for value-based pricing. It is the gold standard for pricing for established product as well as for new services. And what is value-based pricing? It's simply the strategy of setting the price based on the economic value that the customers derive from a product or a service. So for an established category, it can also be defined as the differentiated value for product or service, plus the price of the next best alternative. Let's say you're launching a new cereal brand. The price is already fixed and established in the market. Or like Brandon mentioned, if you are starting a sports facility or something on the entertainment side or anything like that, then the price normally for these services are already established in the market. So your price can be benchmarked based on what the pricing is in the market, but your end price would be the differentiated value that you give to your customers. For a cereal brand, what is it? Is it organic? Is it some new flavors in the market? What is the differentiated value that they can charge for? If there's no differentiated value, where maybe they're sourcing it from a cheaper place, and in that case, they are going to undercut the price. And then that brings us to when we talk about, okay, so we understand what the value-based pricing is, but how to determine that? The way to do that always is to talk with your customer and then ask them about what they are buying, not what you're selling. And this is the key takeaway from here as well. A lot of companies, a lot of people get hung up on what they produce while ignoring what the customers are buying, which could sometimes be very different. And once you understand what your customers are buying, your discussion with your customers then progresses to what's the right value instead of what's the right price. And this is very important. I often give example of TaskRabbit. I I'm not sure how big they are. Back in Massachusetts, they were really big. What they do is that they make it easy for you to find somebody who can do some tasks for you. For example, if you need a handyman, you don't have to search all over the web or something. You can just go to TaskRabbit app and see the service that you're looking somebody for. You will see a lot of providers, and you will also see their ratings. So you can choose somebody from there, pay them over there easily, schedule a time with their online. All of it a lot easier compared to if you have to go find somebody to do the task and then schedule a time and make the payment. So what's happening here is that from TaskRabbit, I am not getting the handyman services, but what I am buying from them is the convenience. They are reducing my searching cost. I don't have to go out and ask people which handyman is good or not, or how do I pay them. Instead, all of this is being done by TaskRabbit for me. When they reduce my searching cost and save my time, that's the value for me. And then TaskRabbit should be asking me that, Saima, what's the value of your time? Because it's the convenience that I'm buying. How do you value the 1 hour that you would have spent otherwise searching it? And then I would say, yeah, I mean, that 1 hour is very valuable. Maybe I could earn another $50 during that hour. I mean, this is crazy, but let's say another something dollars, right? And even if it's like after work, there is a certain value associated with your time, especially when you're a very busy professional. TaskRabbit needs to find out what's the value of my time. And if that's $5, $10, $50, that is the premium that they can charge me on top of the handyman. And maybe it's useful for Brandon, because I think it seemed to me that you are somebody who is connecting 2 or 3 parties, and you are the facilitator kind of. So as a facilitator, you are not the provider, but you are saving time for people. You're giving them convenience. You're giving them something that they want. So you need to know how do they value it, and that will be your premium on top of the product or service that they're receiving from the provider. Does that make sense? And any questions at this point in time? Anybody who has any questions or any comments?
Yeah, there's a question in the chat from Julie. How do I price things when my supply costs are rising every month? She grow and sell plants and seeds. And she also said she recently purchased a laser cutter, and the cost of the materials that she cut and engrave is also increasing. How do I price based on the machinery I'm using as well as the materials, and still stay competitive?
So cost is a really big problem these days, especially with COVID. I have seen, there are some slides where we will look at some technicals of how you can possibly increase price. But even before that, from my experience, cost is a big issue for a lot of industries right now. A lot of customers are willing to pay more or receive less. So usually businesses are cutting down on both ends. On one end, they are reducing the quality of what they are providing to their customers and increasing the price a little bit and finding the balance. Having said that, I have some slides on some technical pricing methods which are very useful in the real world. I'll probably fast forward to that in a little bit, and let me know if your question is still unanswered. Anybody else?
Yeah, and another question in the chat, is low margin business is the way to start your business where market is very competitive?
Yes, you can start low margin as long as as long as you see that you will grow. One of the reasons you also start low margin is that for most of the businesses, costs are high initially, especially fixed costs, right? There are two components to your businesses. One is your fixed cost and one is your variable cost. So your variable cost goes up. It's the cost of the goods or services that you're selling. It goes up as you sell more, but your fixed cost, for example, if you are manufacturing things in a facility or, even in your house, the fixed costs would start going down. For example, your electricity bills for your office. The more clients you have, the smaller electricity cost per customer is. So they go down with time. So a lot of times it's a good idea. It's especially in a challenging market, in a competitive market, that you can start with low margin. I do say, and this is also in one of the slides, that you should, if you want to set a lower price, always launch it as a promotional price, because the number one thumb rule of pricing is that it's easier to bring the price down. It's very, very hard to take the price up. So set a price, right? If it, let's say $100 per hour or $100 per product, you launch as that, and then you can also launch a promotional price in parallel, which could be something like, 50% discount during this month, because then you have established a higher price, but you are giving a signal in the market that, I'm giving it for free. And it has two benefits. One, you create incentives for people to come and buy it, where a lot of people create that time pressure and stuff like that. And then also at the same time, you are able to create that high price perception that, okay, the products are valuable. It will help you raise your price later on.
Harkin comment, but if we make our customer loyal, it will be easy for us to raise the price.
Unfortunately, it does not work that way. Even when companies are offering software products for free, they will tell you in advance that after 3 months, you have to start paying. So yes, a promotion is okay. If if you have set a high price, but you're giving a promotion that it's 50% off or you're getting free, yes, it's easy to go back. But if you have not launched it as a promotion and you have fixed your price at $100 for this product, people remember that and they always ask that, why has the price gone up? The question always pops up. So loyalty is very good, but again, we talk a lot about economic value. People need justification if you increase price, unless you have already told them that the price is high, but I'm giving you a discount. And now is the time to discontinue that discount. Or I gave you a free trial for 3 months, but now it's time to take it off. In that case, then they consider it to be fair. Otherwise, if you want to raise the price later on, you would need to have very good justification or add-on products or add-on services, because of which you are now increasing your price.
Rachel, I see you raised your hand. Feel free to unmute yourself.
Hi, yeah, I asked my question in the chat. My question, the business or organization that I'm working on is offering a service of collecting items that can be recycled responsibly in the city of Toronto, but do not go in the blue bin program. So the city won't accept them, but there are other outlets for them. And one way I do this is by working with organizations that do call outs for certain items. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering, I charge people to pick up their items. That's the service. It's ethical decluttering. But is it appropriate to charge these small community groups some sort of fee? Like, I don't feel like it's appropriate. It kind of goes against what they're doing, but I just haven't been able to figure out how to go about navigating that. Just because I'm giving them lots of items for free, like it's an in-kind donation, I guess. But I'm not sure, and I'm just trying to find like a definitive answer or like direction to explore that.
Usually I've seen with services like this, which border on pro bono versus non pro bono, is that there's a new concept in the market which says that pay what you like. And here we ask customers that, you know, the minimum is maybe $0, but, you know, because of da, it would be nice if you could choose how much you want to pay. It's $1, $2, $3, $4, something like that. So that is one way to go. I'm not sure how applicable it is to your business, but this is more common in your line of business. Have you considered that?
Sorry, I feel like I can't, I don't know, but so I unfortunately missed your answer, but it sounds like you proposed maybe asking them like $1 per item. Is that what you said?
You can make it optional, right, for the payments, and then see if what kind of response is it that you're getting. So you can launch this as a temporary thing where you can ask basically a concept like pay what you want kind of a thing. There's a better term for it. I cannot remember it like right now. But a lot of times the customers, many companies these days would ask the customers for these type of services that how much do they want to pay, and they give them an option to pay or not to pay, but they also justify it that, you know, okay, if you pay, how does it help the cause? And most often we have seen in the industry that people end up paying if they feel strong about the cause, even if they have an option to not pay. I have paid. I've also paid on certain apps where they're saying that it is for free, but, you know, it's up to you. If you pay $1, $2, it is going to support this and that. And then I'm like, okay, you know, I think it's probably a good idea to pay a little bit. So that is something that you can try.
You're saying for the organizations that put a call out for items, like if I have a large amount, to ask them for like an honorary amount for like for gratitude. Okay, that's something to consider. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So if there are any questions, feel free to jump in. Otherwise, I'll just go on. So basically, based on what we have seen so far, okay, I think somebody has their hand raised, or I think it's still Rachel, right?
Yeah, you answered her question.
Okay. So basically, what we say is that price is the reward that you receive for creating, capturing, and communicating the value to your customers. Now, remember these 3 C's, they are extremely important no matter what the size of your business is. I've seen a lot of businesses creating value but not capturing it, meaning they're not able to charge for it. And the reason often is that they're not able to communicate it. So once you have validated that your product has a certain value to your customers, it is extremely important that you are able to communicate it in a way which helps you monetize or charge for it as well. These are the 5 C's of pricing. It's a long slide. I'm not going to go through all of it, but just quickly, it's important to comprehend the things that the customer values. It's important to create value for the customers. It's important to communicate the value and then also convince the customers that your value is worth paying for. And also you then capture the value through effective pricing. And before you charge the customer, before you convince the customer, you have to be convinced yourself that this is the value the customer sees in your products, and they should be willing to pay for it. And why is that important? Because looking at customer value today is even more important than it was before, because the customers are very, very informed today. They are connected. We know there are 7 billion potential subscribers on mobile social media, and I think this is an old number. 80% of customers demand new consumption models, as we've seen in some research. They buy their way. They ask you, why can't I pay for this service like that? You know, can I pay in installments? Can I do this and that? So today, customers are in control and they are well informed. So it is important for us to make sure that we identify how to create financial value for customers so we can charge more when we do, and also what to take away when we charge less. And I think somebody had a question here in the group as well. What do I do when my costs are going up and the market is not ready to accept the price? You have to take something away from your products. And funny example, we go to this shawarma place. We love Middle Eastern food. So my family, we go to the shawarma place close by. And it was very interesting to see that when all the prices were going up, they did not increase the prices of their shawarma. And you're like, you know, I was curious as to what's going on. And then after a few times, I realized that while they have kept the price the same, actually there's a lot less meat in the shawarmas now. And maybe the wrap is a little bit smaller. So that's another key, that, you know, when you cannot charge as much for the products or services, then it's important for you to explore what is it that you can take away and you can charge less. Okay, this is a bit complex. I'll try to cover it. So what we are looking here is just to give you a quantitative tool if you want to price your products. So what you have on the x-axis is the value delivered to customers. And on the y is how customer values the product over the status quo. So let's take example of TaskRabbit. So TaskRabbit, what's the existing product in the market? Handyman. They've always been there, right? I need something repaired, handyman, basic service. Where does TaskRabbit comes in? Now, I don't have to ask so many people who the handyman is, who is good. I don't have to go about how do I pay them? What if I don't have cash at my place at the time? All those things I can just easily pay online. That is the incremental value TaskRabbit has over the market. And this is what they can pay me for. And even for something in the long term or upcoming features, which nobody has available in the market. And this, when I add these three, this is what TaskRabbit is charging in customers, and this is what they can charge their customers. If you have an entirely new product in the market, though, then you can start with the cost. And on top of the cost, you can see that what is the extra value that I'm delivering to the customer. Again, like we discussed, you need to talk to your customers then. You need to ask them, where do they see the value? And how much are they willing to pay for it? And you don't ask, like I mentioned before, you don't ask them, what do you think the price of this product should be? No, you ask them that, okay, what's the value this service is delivering to you? And what does that value mean to you in dollar terms, right? What does, for example, in my example, how much am I willing to pay if I can save 1 hour of my time? That's the value that TaskRabbit can monetize me for. And then again, long-term upcoming features value, and that's what you can charge your customers for. So always there is a base, and then on top of that base, you're building by getting to know what the differentiated value of your products or services. How to determine that value? I talked a little bit about talk to your customers and ask them, but how do we do that? What are the different tools? Market research, pilot tests, and freemium are some of the ways to explore what the right value could be. When it comes to market research, there are quite a few tools available in the market. When we talk about big companies, they would usually, or pricing firm like my firm, we would usually resort to conjoint, Van Western Drop, or Mondex studies to find out the price levels, not the pricing strategy, but the price levels. And what these studies help us see is that if, let's say, our product has certain features and price, how do customers trade those off against each other? So if I make organic ingredients, that feature, how much do customers value that and how much more money are they going to pay for it? And the conjoint software, when you use it, what it does is that people are going to see different screens with different choices, maybe 10 or 12, and they make some selections. And then the algorithm behind the conjoint is smart enough to assign value to each and every feature. And then it's also able to advise you on what feature has how much value. Now, this is very valuable, but usually people would use it for established businesses. If it's not, also, it used to be very expensive, but now if you search conjoint tools, there are DIY tools which can cost like $1,000 to $2,000, and you could do the research yourself instead of going to a big company and spending thousands of dollars with them. But you would do that if you have a major price challenge and you have a slightly more established business. Otherwise, I would suggest that, we use some other pricing tools which are more common, where you ask, after you have asked customers about how do they value it and how do they value the time, and when you're asking them to put a monetary value on that time, you can give them random numbers to choose from, a smaller number and then a bigger number. Let's say first $10, $20, $30, and see where they stop. You don't show all the prices to them together. That's another key, because these are all new founders. It's probably the basic, but I should still mention it, that if you're asking for the monetary, if you're asking people to assign a monetary value to something, you don't give them 4 prices together. They will always choose the smaller value. You always randomize it. You give them one number. If they say no, then you go to the higher number, then you go to the higher number, and then you stop when they say that, yes, they will buy at that price. And then again, when they say, you keep increasing price, and towards the end, at the maximum price where they saw, no, there's absolutely no way I will buy this product at this price, that's where you stop. So these are some of the tools. I know it's too much to absorb and maybe not something that you grasp in 1 minute, but what I would like you to do is take a mental note of these tools. And when you need them, you can Google them and then use them if you need them too. An easier approach for startups is to just launch a pilot and do A/B testing. I did this for a fitness startup, and they did not know what should the monthly subscription fees be for the online fitness providers, and they were in a certain range. And what should subscription services be for their platform? So what I did with them was that we launched a few different prices, not all at the same time, but 1 week we launched one set of offers with a certain price, and the next week another set of products with a different price tag. And then we saw which ones had the most uptake in the market. And we did it through social media platforms. We used Google Ads and Facebook. And we set a value at $1 per day. So we did not go big on that because obviously it's a startup and it has very low budget. But it did give a rough idea that, okay, when this product was shown with this price, there was higher uptake compared to the other one. And that's one way of testing the price in the market before you actually go full out with the launch. Another one for SaaS products or any software service would be that you do a free pilot because there is no tangible cost associated with the product. So over the few months, you can work with your beta users or with early customers and then sort out the pricing at the end of the trial, as we talk and negotiate. Which is actually freemium. So this is where, this is the one I was talking about, that you can offer free services for a limited period of time, and then it can be followed by customized pricing. Usually this is with B2B enterprises, B2B services, because you don't have that many customers and you have time for custom deals, especially when you are a smaller provider and you don't have that many customers in the market. Some of the important considerations here. We talked about value creation and we saw how TaskRabbit can charge for my time. But they cannot charge me 100% of the value they have generated for me from the start. As a general rule, 20% of the value that they've created is a good starting point for what you can capture in the long run. Because a new business has risk associated with it, new products have risk associated with it. So they cannot claim the full price unless a lot of people in the market have used the product and the case has been proven, and then they get slowly ramp it up to 100%. Again, like I mentioned, you start with like a base price, which is high, but you give a discount or you have promotional prices and all of those things. You start with a low margin to penetrate the market, even though you set a high price somewhere in your product offerings. Customer acquisition analysis, it's very important to look at the customer decision-making unit. For example, for toys, it's not the kids. Yes, kids are important. And when the toy company is designing products, they have kids in mind. But when they're pricing it, they're looking at the decision-making unit. And parents are actually the decision-making unit here. That's what the toy company needs to think about. Software businesses, what do they do? Especially when they are doing B2B deals. They look at which department are they dealing with. If the procurement manager has the authority to approve a deal up to $10,000 and their original price was $12,000, they would bring it down to $10,000 to reduce the DMU, Because if the decision has to go to the CFO, it's going to take a lot longer, and chances are that there will be more competitors and the deal might not go through. So it's important for many reasons to make sure that you know the decision-making unit of your customer, and you know the preferences and priorities of everyone in that decision-making unit and how they value the product, and not just the end user. Then product maturity. So it's hard to command premium price for immature products due to high risk. So like I said, you can start with a low margin, set a base price high, but discount it, give promotional pricing, give offers in the market if your product is immature. Flexibility. This is the rule of thumb that I talked about. It's always easier to drop the price than to raise it. It's not impossible. There are ways to do that, but it's not easy. A little bit about nature of the customers. So usually we will see innovators, early adopters, early majority, late majority, laggards in the market. It's good to know, depending on the type of your business, who your customer is, because innovators are usually relatively inelastic. They buy in lower volumes. If your target segment is only innovators, you can probably charge a premium, because you will not be selling volumes anyway. So better charge a premium to those customers who like to experiment and are not very price sensitive. Majority customers, usually they make their purchase decisions based on ROI. They buy in larger volume, and they're usually the influencers as well. Usually in this segment, which is like kind of majority, we suggest a dual strategy. You should have a competitive entry price point for customers to join in, but also a high-end product or a higher price point, so you can get you can make sure that you monetize those customers who are not price sensitive and who you can provide more value. Laggards, here you're talking about commodities, and here you just have to be competitive and price. There is less room for pricing innovation or charging premium in the market. I'm going to just skip some of these in the interest of time. We talked about this a little bit anyway. Something which could be more interesting is tiered pricing. And tiered pricing can be used to increase profits and also to optimize revenue. You can also use it to move people up, like to upgrade them, to increase revenue from them, to increase their lifetime value. And you can also use it to create a variable price perception in the market, a low entry point and a high entry point. Tiered pricing can be used to offer a range of prices to be able to capture higher revenue from customers who are willing to pay and yet acquire low-end customers with an entry level price point. Most relevant for startups and small businesses when customer base is still smaller and new customers as well as market penetration are a priority. These two, contextual pricing and loyalty, I'm going to skip them because they are more relevant to bigger businesses. So this is essentially tiered pricing. It is still one of the most effective ways to penetrate across economic classes within a segment. It creates an opportunity for upsell and maximizes customers' lifetime value. You can create tiers based on the specs, based on the services, categories, time, etc. I have a basic example here of 3 tiers. This is assuming a software service. One of them is basic, premium, and ultimate. And you can see how there is more value in higher tiers. Usually, statistics have shown that customers tend to purchase the middle tier more often. So if you are able to create tiers for your products or services, you should be optimizing the middle one, because that's where people psychologically go towards, and that's what they consider most optimal. The others are basically, the basic tier would usually be to attract price sensitive customers, somebody who wants to have your service, but do not have the ability to pay yet. And ultimate services, there are always people in the market who want to purchase the most expensive tier. So it is basically either for those people, or it is for enterprises who really are in the need of higher capacity for this type of products. This does not just apply to software products. This can apply to a lot of services as well. This can also apply to a lot of tangible products. This can apply, there's a new concept in the market of mystery boxes. So what happens is that you can subscribe to, let's say, even there was a cosmetic service very popular in the US a few years ago, where you could subscribe, pay $10 a month, and get a mystery box of different cosmetics every month. And then there was tiers. Let's say if you pay $5, you get a smaller box. $10, you get a bigger box. $25, you get an even bigger box. So subscription pricing and tiered pricing is something which more and more businesses are using these days, and are becoming more popular and are applicable to almost any business. Any questions?
Yeah, there's a question from Hargan. Is tiered pricing is like providing the product in different quantities?
That is one way of doing it. Usually it's based on features. Usually there is something in one tier which is not available in the next tier. But like in the example of cosmetics one, it could either be based on the type of brands, high and low end, or it could be based on quantity. So there are more than one ways of designing the tiers. Quantity is one of them, for sure.
And I think we have a question from the previous slides from Sabrina. How many people should we survey? I think that's for A/B testing.
There's no right or wrong. I would generally prefer that we call it an N. So it should be 30 or more, but it depends. If it's like an established business with many, many segments, I would ask them to have a minimum of 30 to have statistical significance for each and every segment and type of product. But you can also work with low statistical significance. I would say that any research is better than no research, especially when we talk about startups. We are very flexible. But for one segment, one basic product, a sample of 30 is usually good enough to give you some idea. Any other?
Sabrina said, thank you. Working on her market research, she spent 1 hour on a vid call with a participant.
Okay.
Any other questions?
So if not, some consideration for tiered pricing. When you create these tiers, it's important to be careful with the fencing. You don't want to create tiers for the sake of tiers. Customers should be able to see value in them. Otherwise, they'll think that you're just tricking them. And customer confidence is our number one priority. So these tiers should always be fair. And we usually call it fencing. So the fencing between basic and premium and ultimate is something that the customers consider fair. If you're going from 5 subdomains to unlimited subdomains, this should be something which is an important feature to to the customer and not something which wouldn't really make any difference, because in that case, we cannot justify why we are charging higher. Another thing is what a lot of companies do is, especially when they're growing, they put way too much value in the basic package. And then later on, it becomes very difficult to upsell them to the next tier. So always be mindful, even if you're not launching all the 3 tiers at once, but you would in future, just see that, do you want to give so much in the basic tier? There's no reason for customers to pay more in the future. That is something to be mindful of, because as you grow, you're going to R&D, you want to have enough liquidity to be able to do all of that. Tiered pricing, we have seen some proven results, and this is a very interesting case. So The Economist, the magazine, some time back, they launched 2 types of subscription packages in the market to 2 different groups. So group 1 saw this packaging where they can only get subscription to the online journal, and if they want print plus online, they have to pay $125. Now the uptake for $59 was 68%, and only 32% people were willing to pay $125. Group 2, on the other hand, they had $59, same price as here for the online journal subscription, and then print plus online, $125, same. But they introduced a new tier in the middle, which was print only subscription. And they assigned it a value of $125. And now suddenly, customers can see that if you bundle them together, they're getting a lot more value here. And 84% of the customers opted for $125 and 16% only for $59. And this is just change of optics. There is no product innovation here. The offerings are primarily the same. You just played around with the optics. You just played around with the pricing. You give customers an anchor price, and average revenue per subscriber went up by 43%. So this is why I always tell my customers, and whenever I'm doing the workshops, to everybody who is listening, that to not undermine the value of how you price and how you offer your products in the market, because it can have a huge, huge impact on your sales and your bottom line. This type of price we call anchoring. A lot of businesses many times want to introduce a high-end tier because then it makes your middle tier more attractive, because suddenly this is looking cheap, right? And that's the psychology here that the economists used. So very interesting takeaway from here. Any questions before I move on to subscription pricing?
Yeah, there's another question from Hargan, which is that one or few sector you're really looking forward to? Hargan, would you mind unmute yourself and give us more information about your question? I think this question is for previous slides.
Industry, which one would it be? Maybe if Morgan is still here, she can explain the question. Otherwise, we can move on.
Another question from Hargan said, which is not really utilized yet?
Which industry?
I'm not too sure. Hargan, would you mind unmute yourself? Otherwise, we will jump to your question later on. There's another question from Warda. Any advice for someone who doesn't have any market competitor, especially when you are introducing a culture products not many know of? Which pricing model would you recommend?
So in that case, like I previously mentioned, that you have to unfortunately start with the cost, and then you would need to speak with a few customers. Tiered pricing would be very safe because you're not sure how much your customers are willing to pay. So if I don't know what type of product you have, but if it's the kind of product where you could have tiers, it's usually safer when you don't know how much customers are willing to pay, because you have an opportunity to flash 3 price points or 5 or 2 instead of just 1. So that's kind of a safer approach with new launches like that. And if free trial and premium doesn't apply. Make sense?
She said yes.
Okay, cool. So subscription pricing, everybody is talking about subscription pricing these days. Why is subscription pricing so popular? Because your upfront charges are lower. You can pay every month, which is a good thing for the customers. It's a recurring source of revenues for companies because cash flows are guaranteed. And also, when the customer is paying in increments, they stay with you. So it also results in customer stickiness. It's more relevant when the benefits or value of a product or service recurs over a period of time, or when the CapEx is high and upfront charging really makes it a difficult sale, and for non-tangible products or services where you have repeat customer transactions. Research has suggested that subscription-based companies are growing much more rapidly compared to the Fortune 500. Actually, a lot of Fortune 500 companies are also moving into subscription pricing, or at least launching some products where they can charge subscriptions. But it's really popular because buyers have lower entry costs. Buyers don't have to commit a considerable payment upfront. Companies can often win new business without the need for salespeople to close a very large transaction. And as long as companies keep new customers happy, they continue to pay. We now live in what we call subscription economy. It's a very popular term if you have not heard it already. There's 7 billion potential subscribers on mobiles, social media, and web. And like we saw earlier, 80% of these customers are demanding new consumption models as well. And one of those models is subscription. So the question is how to launch subscription pricing. How is it relevant for your business? I would say you start with the data. You analyze how customers are buying from you and how much they are spending per month or per year. You evaluate service elements in existing business model and research customers' propensity to pay for the subscriptions. For a product as a service model, which is again a new term in the market, there are certain products, high tech, for example, HVACs, which were previously only being sold as a product, are now being offered in the market as service, means that they remain as asset on the books of the supplier, and the organization who is using them, or whoever the customer is renting those high-end equipment. So in that case, the product has actually become a service because they're doing heating and cooling services for a certain building or house or a customer. as opposed to previously where it was only a one-time transaction and it was not a service, it was just a huge product. So for product as a service model experimentation, you need to launch trials and see where customers land in different segments, evaluate results, and adjust pricing. Again, you can use tier pricing models here because it gives more flexibility for price adjustments. Quick turnaround and product pricing adjustments based on sales trends and customer feedback. Be agile and act fast based on insights from the data. A successful subscription model does not just mean recurring revenues, and it is very important to keep this in mind. A lot of businesses would launch subscription services because they think that they can get more and more recurring cash flows. But in reality, it also means recurring services and constant engagement with customers throughout the subscription life cycle. If the switching costs for the customers are low, meaning if they can easily move to the other provider, chances are that they're going to switch once the service value drops. And the cost of churn are higher. So one of the costs of subscription pricing is that you really have to keep your customers happy so they keep paying you. Some of my favorite examples are these. I'll just go to HP Instant, which is a smart ink refill services. HP connects your device, monitors ink levels, and sends you a package when you get toward the bottom of a cartridge. It's a very traditional business, but there is an innovative spin-off over here through subscription pricing. These are some examples which I use in some of my workshops just to demonstrate that a lot of traditional businesses can also employ subscription pricing. And I will just maybe give one example of, let's say, a brick and mortar catering and event planning services, very traditional business. For them, a subscription add-on could look like, for example, for their corporate clients, 10% all events for the year for a monthly subscription of X dollars. And food subscriptions are also becoming a commonplace. So these are very common businesses, but there still are ways to create subscription pricing around these everyday products and services. Concluding thoughts on subscription pricing, you must specifically think about whether your customers would prefer to buy a subscription over owning your product. So while it's a popular model and I would like every business to consider it, it's also important to make sure that it's relevant to your customers. Okay, I think this is probably the last one, but I like it a lot. These are just common psychological pricing tactics that you don't find in most of textbooks. First of all is the saving advantage. In B2B businesses, it's a very effective sales tool where you show the opportunity cost of not using your product or services being sold. In corporate language, they call it something like a waterfall, which is a way of highlighting the potential waste in the client's existing state. But for any business, you can focus on, okay, if this person doesn't buy my service, what is it that they're going to lose? And then you focus on that when you're talking to them. And psychology suggests that people tend to avoid losses more. They're more afraid of a loss than they are motivated to get a gain. So that's one thing that a lot of people do by focusing on the saving advantage or opportunity cost of not using your products or services. Then price breakdown is another effective tool, especially in B2B, even B2C. So for example, you can communicate the monthly subscription charge of $30 is $1 per day to be charged monthly. or the price of a box of 50 chocolates is 50 cents per chocolate instead of $25 per box. Because suddenly you are looking at it in a different light and you're helping reduce the customer's monetary barrier because now they can look at the cost in increments. Odd numbering. Odd number pricing characterized by 9 and 99 cents, 49.9, creates perception of a much lower price compared to $50. It's a very, very old tactic, and I'm surprised that it still works. And the reason psychologists say is because the way our brain looks at the digits is that it's always looking at the first one that registers and takes some time before it registers the second, third, fourth digits. And when you say 49.9, there is an automatic perception of a lower price point compared to a price tag of $50. Be mindful though, as customers are becoming more and more aware. A lot of people would not just use 49.9, rather like 47.9 or something, because you don't want to come across as somebody who is cheating, and you shouldn't be. Then deferred payments. Deferred payments is, again, it's more like installment-based payments, and these are generally used to ease financial burden for clients. And they're also used to reduce purchase pain when new products are complex and require learning. This applies a lot of times to software products because when a company is purchasing a new software tool, let's say CRM platform, there's a lot of pain associated with learning the tool. So you want to reduce that pain by at least telling the customer that, okay, you can pay me in increments, it doesn't have to create an impact on your income statement right away at the end of this month. So that is usually helpful. Other than these, I think these are a little bit too deep dive for this session. But primarily, you need to know the cost of customer acquisition. What does it cost you when you acquire one customer for the customer? And what is the revenue that you're getting from them? And what is the delta between the two? And the rule of the thumb is that if you price the product right, your LTV should be at least 3 times your cost of customer acquisition. There's a pricing worksheet that I will not go through. Rather, I would have Serena or Marlena maybe float it out. So if you want, you can spend some time on it later. And it will be really useful before you get into your business. I think I will close here and open the room for any questions.
Sonia asked, thank you for the great information. Are you available for one-on-one consultation?
I do one-on-one consultations, and I think that, okay, this is no longer valid. I will remove this. You can reach out to me to my LinkedIn or at this address, and I will be more than happy to help.
There's another question. Let me see. Will you be talking about pricing for retail and wholesale today? I'm importing a special cultural food for fasting. At the same time, the food product is gluten-free. I plan to sell on retail to customers and also on wholesale to bakeries. I'm having trouble deciding how to price for retail and wholesale.
Yeah, these are very valid questions. Usually this is more like an introductory sessions. If we go into the wholesale pricing and the mechanics of it, I think that takes a lot of time. So I think, for this session, I would probably stop here. If you have any specific questions though, you can ask.
Hima, would you mind unmute yourself?
Hi. Actually, I don't have a specific question about these. It's just I think I need to figure out first how to price on retail first, and I'll probably go through the notes that you will be sending, and maybe I'll get in touch later on when it's time to move on to wholesale pricing. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. No problem at all. Anybody else has any questions here?
And there's one more question. Which books you recommend for deeper information?
Unfortunately, most of the pricing books are the ones that are written for pricing professionals in big corporates. But if I come across anything, I'll make sure to pass it to Serena so she can circulate with the audience here. But Google is your best friend. There's a lot available on the internet.
Awesome, thank you. I don't see any other questions in the chat. Anyone, if you have any question, feel free to unmute yourself. And we will send out Saima's contact information in the follow-up email as well. So feel free to ask more questions if you have any. One more question from Warda. Any recommendation on pricing when using sites?
Sorry, when using?
Sites.
Sites, what sites?
Like either Etsy, Shopify.
Oh, yeah. So I think, again, it depends on the type of product that you have. If you have a lot of SKUs, it's usually a bit complicated. But what I suggest is to always have some leaders in your portfolio, products that are premium products, and also like I'm thinking about a jewelry business on Etsy that I was consulting, and they were going on to Shopify. So because when you have so many SKUs, you cannot focus on each and every one. You have to identify which is your key selling SKUs. And within that, you need to have some entry products, which is attracting the customer, where there is value, but the price tag is low. And then you need to have some high-end customers, high-end products in your portfolio, where you have a high premium and you are also providing some high-end products. Usually this kind of combination ensures that you have good traffic flowing in. I think that on platforms like Etsy, Shopify, it's also important to understand the tools that you have, or what CRM tools are available in the market. As businesses grow, I've seen that usually they would go out in the market and get some additional softwares starting from maybe $50, $100 a month to thousands of dollars a month, depending on the volume of the business, which help them understand their customers better and target them better. These software tools you can use to understand at what stage did the customer approach the cart, but then abandon the cart. Did they compare prices? What happened? And then you can also send promotional offers to those customers, right? That all, those could be price or unprice related. Non-price related could be, oh, we saw that you liked something, it is still waiting for you. I'm sure you receive these messages all the time from many different sellers. Interestingly, the cost of these automation platforms is not that high, depending on what kind of service you're looking for. So I think those things are also very important, in addition to the price that you have on your website when you're selling on Etsy, Shopify, and these platforms.